Hi and welcome to my Isolated Christian videos. My name is Ian Campbell. What I want to encourage you with today, in my other videos I know I've said that with this forced lockdown, forced isolation that we're in, that God is not going to change this, God is not going to stop this. And some people might be a little nervous, a bit worried and think, well, if God is such a loving God, why would he not stop this? I'm in a terrible situation, I'm in a terrible place, and believe you me, I'm not making light of it. If you are, if you are, I really am so sorry that you are. But I know some people think, well, why would God not stop it? We're struggling with money, with food, with this, with that, and we're in this situation. Why would God not bring it to a close? Why would he sit and watch us struggling? Well, first and foremost, God doesn't sit and watch people struggling. He doesn't do that sort of thing. God takes care of his own and takes care of people far more than they actually realise. But I want to encourage you, and like I said, I'm not making light of your situation, but I want to give you some encouragement. If you're in that sort of place today where you really are struggling to think, well, why would God not stop this? I want to encourage you with the story of Joseph. Now, if you look at in the Bible of the story of Joseph, we're talking that when Joseph got taken into captivity, when his brothers sold him into slavery, when he got took away, from then until the moment that he rose to prominence, as far as I'm led to believe, there's like a 13-year period where he finally comes to prominence. Then after that, as far as I understand the Bible, there's a period of 7 years of plenty, and then there's 7 years of famine. So we're talking between the time he gets taken into captivity and the time of the famine, we're talking a 20-year period. And we're talking about God looking at Joseph and saying, here is my chosen person. Here is my main man. Here's the one I've chosen. Now, if God had asked Joseph, and laid out the story of how everything went, if God had said to Joseph, do you want to go to Egypt? Do you want to go through all this? If he'd have asked his permission, I think Joseph would have said, no, I'm not interested. But see, there are times in life where God doesn't ask your permission. God doesn't ask what you think because he knows better. And I know this might not sound it, but if you stick with me, I think you'll find there's an encouragement in this. God allowed him to get taken into captivity because his final destination was Egypt. And if you read your Bible, the Jewish nation ended up in Egypt, but Joseph was sent ahead. God allowed him to be taken into captivity, to go to Egypt. But notice that yes, he was a slave, yes, he was badly treated for a little while, but it says that he was bought by Potiphar, captain of the king's guards. So he was a man of high prominence in a high position. And if you read the story of Joseph, you'll notice that as you read, there are certain bits throughout the story, and the words are, but God was with him. And that's what I want to encourage you with today. No matter what you're going through, but God is with you. And God was with him all the way. And even though he was in Potiphar's house, things weren't going brilliantly to start with because he was in a foreign country. He had to learn, not just in his own time, in his own leisure, he had to learn very, very quickly the Egyptian language, because that's the language they spoke. And if he didn't answer and didn't know what they were asking or telling him to do, he probably got beaten. So he had to learn very, very fast. His circumstances overnight changed, and his life was tipped upside down, and he was not what I would call in the ideal situation. He was not in a good place, but God was with him. And you'll notice that it says that Potiphar, whether he was a religious man or he had thoughts of God in any way, or he worshipped a God himself, I'm not 100% sure, but it does say that Potiphar noticed that God was with him. His God was with him. He knew that Joseph was a religious man. He knew that his God was with him. And he saw, you see, because Potiphar is a clever man, he wasn't stupid, so God put Joseph in the right house. Yes, he had a bad start to things, but he ended up in a nice place. And his life wasn't perfect. He was away from home, thousands of miles away from home, but it was a decent house. And Potiphar noticed that whatever he touched, whatever he did, worked, went right. So he promoted him in charge of all his household. And that included, to some degree, his wife and all of the servants. And things went well. And yes, he got accused of rape. We all know the story. Read it if you've never read it. But most of you that are Christians will know what I'm talking about. He got accused of rape. He got thrown into prison. You would think, wow, surely Potiphar would know what he would know the sort of person Joseph was. But anyway, when you think about the story, how can Joseph meet the baker and the cupbearer if he's not in prison? Because that's where they were going to be. And these people were with Pharaoh, not in Potiphar's house. So how do you get the two together? God allows Joseph to be slung into prison where he meets the other two people in the story. So things go well for him. He's promoted into the house. Things seem to be going okay. Ever been in that in life? Things are going swimmingly. Things are going quite well. Then all of a sudden, overnight, once again, his whole life is tipped upside down. He's accused of something that he knows he never did, and he's thrown into prison. But while he's in there, like I said in my other videos, that gift that he hadn't used to interpret dreams rose to the top, because these two had dreams. And he said, what's up with you? And they said, we've got these dreams. And no, he said, well, I can do that. He said, my God shows me. And they explained it, and if you read the story, you know what happened. But here's the thing. You see, the cupbearer, when he got put back with Pharaoh, Joseph said, remember me when you get to Pharaoh. He went, yeah, of course I will. Ever had that said to you? Yeah, I remember you. Yeah, and that's the last time you see him. And I'm sure, I believe, a couple of years went by, and he was probably thinking, I thought he was going to tell Pharaoh for me. But here's my point. Not until the moment came when Pharaoh needed somebody to interpret his dream. Up until that point, the cupbearer didn't need to be reminded. The point is, at the right moment, when God knows that moment is, the cupbearer says, oh, I've just been reminded. Something dropped into, he didn't say God because he probably didn't believe in God, but he went, oh, I've just been reminded. You see, Pharaoh asked his enchanters and his people, to magicians and enchanters, to interpret the dream, and none of them could do it. And the cupbearer went, oh, Your Majesty, I'm sorry, but I've just been reminded there's a guy in your prison, that interpreted the dream. And Pharaoh's like, oh, really? What did he say? What did he do? And he told him the story, and he went, go and get him. So as quick as Joseph's life changed for the worse and he got slung into prison, and even in prison, I want to just add something else, even in prison it says that the guy that was in charge of the prison noticed that everything Joseph did and everything he touched worked. So he put him in charge of the whole prison. He was lazy, but any excuses are good, but he put him in charge of the prison. But he was still in prison, not of his own making. But notice, God did not take him out of the prison until the time was right. And now, as quick as it all went bad, I know there's a time period, but as quick as overnight he got slung into prison, all of a sudden those doors are opening and he's thinking, they're coming for me. What's going to happen now? He all of a sudden gets dragged out of prison, washed, shaved, whatever, smartened up, and now he's put in front of Pharaoh and he's thinking, my days are about to end. And Pharaoh says, apparently I hear you can interpret dreams. The whole crux of the story is he gets promoted. What I'm saying to you is, at the end of the story, Joseph gets put in charge of everything, because he said there are 7 years of plenty, then there are 7 years of famine. What I'm trying to encourage you with, my point of this story is that this period of isolation you're in, this time of testing that you're in, there is a reason later on. As we saw with the story of Joseph, and I hope and pray it's not 20 years for you, but we saw that Joseph was here. God looked at this man here and said, here in 20 years that I know of, this is when he needs to rise to prominence, but I need to let all these things happen to get him to where I need him to be. And when I get him to where I need him to be, then I'll get him to do what I need him to do. And then when he rises to prominence, then people will know that I'm God and I put him there. And Joseph said to his brothers, what you meant for evil, my God meant for good. What I'm trying to say to you today is this situation you're in, this trial and testing you're in, this time you're in is not good. It doesn't feel great to you, and your whole world is collapsing. I've been there, I've been in that situation, I'm in it with you, but like I said in my other video, praise God, I still have a job, but I am understanding what I'm trying to encourage you with. No matter what's happening in your situation, God has seen from the start to the finish, and there's something he wants to do. And when you come out of this, there will be a different change, it will all come together. What I'm trying to say is God knows the end from the beginning. So be encouraged. What you're going through now is not nice, it's not good, it's not great, and you're probably worried, frightened, and you're thinking, what the hell is going on? But know this, God is in charge and he knows what he's doing. And when the end comes, you'll look back and think, wow, at the time I was worried and I was unsure, but my God came through. There's so much more I could say about this, but I don't want to go on too long. But I hope that's been of some encouragement for you. My name's Ian Campbell, the Isolated Christian. See you next time.